All right, guys. My name's Charles Bushong. I've managed a GitLab with over 10,000 users in it, and one of the things I found out is that there's people with Git experience of all kinds, from the super users to the very newish newbies who are trying to figure out how to do a Git commit. So I like to take a step back and say, hey, what are the problems that a lot of people have? Is that there's a steep learning curve, and what I'm going to do is provide a lot of different solutions for these problems. Slide by slide, so it's going to be very fast-paced, and I'm going to talk really fast. Ignore the stuff on the right, and we'll be fine. Hold on to your butts, guys. All right, so we got git config. The first problem you run into is that you try and make a commit, and it says, hey, you haven't set your username and email. So git config is in two locations, actually. There's your global git config, and there's also a git config on every single project. You can use this to set your email if you have a separate account. Another option is, hey, I've got problems where I typo everything. There's actually a feature for autocorrect in Git. You can set this with your git config, and you can set it on just one project with your git config if you so desire. Another thing you've run into is that I type the same command over and over with this one flag. This one flag, for example, git status -- short. You might want to do that all the time. You can set any flag in Git permanently with a git config. And this is a pretty handy command, git status short. Next, you'll run into a problem where you type these really, really long commands, but you can't use git status, or you can't do config permanently enabling it. So what you can do is create an alias, where one command, a new command, is actually just a series of other commands with different flags. So you might have some code you're trying to edit locally, and you need to switch branches for whatever reason. This can be a pain. What you can do is git stash it, and it saves a commit with just that thing, and you can stash pop it later when you're done. So it's a really quick way to switch branches without changing your current work. Git rebase, this is a scary one, and it's going to be tough in 15 seconds, but you can make if you make small commits with bad messages, such as whoops and work in progress, you can use git rebase -I to interactively replace them and squash them, reword them before you push it to master. Another option with git rebase is just the command git rebase. What this does is, if you've made a local commit and you do a pull, it creates this like stupid little merge commit that you don't really have any reason to have. Git rebase just wipes it away magically. It's pretty handy if you've never used it before. Another option with git rebase is, or a problem with git rebase is that you end up doing rebase every time you pull, and you end up stashing every time you rebase. And what you can do to solve this is there's two configuration options for git pull rebase always and git rebase auto stash always. Another problem is if you have a work directory, you may find that you have to configure every single project with a different email address. There's actually a new feature of Git which lets you load conditionally a new config file based on what directory you're in. It's in Git 2.13, so unless you're really up to speed, you won't have it. Multiple SSH keys. If you have two accounts on GitHub, you have definitely experienced this where you don't have access to your SSH key. If you're trying to clone from GitHub.com, you can use SSH key, an SSH configuration to change this behind the scenes. Don't worry about it, it's complicated. Garbage collect. When you have a Git repo, sometimes there's cruft that gets into the cracks, and there's these big files that you don't need anymore. It has a garbage collect feature built in, git GC. And if you need it to be aggressively garbage collecting, you can do that too. Cherry pick. When you want to single commit from another branch, but you're on a separate branch, you can git cherry pick. It's a built-in feature. Hey, look at that. It's going to create a new hash on this second page, or on the second branch, but it'll still be the exact same code replayed. If you need to move your Git repo to a different place, somewhere that doesn't have access to the internet, perhaps, you could zip up all these things like a monster, but you don't want to do that. You want to create a file that you can clone from, that you can pull from, and Git bundle can do this. It can also create differential bundles, so you just have a series of commits. Git bisect. Something broke. You don't know when, and there's many commits to search. Git bisect is a way to say, hey, I know a good commit, I know a bad commit, help me find the one in between that is the changing point. It can be semi-automatic or fully automatic if you create a script. Submodule, if you depend on code from another repo, for example, if you have a separate repo for your node modules, this is pretty handy, where you can just pull all of your code separately, or all of your dependencies separately without recopying code and trying to keep it up to sync, and it's a huge pain. Whitespace, if you have a coworker that submits a bug fix, but they also convert all spaces to tabs because they're a monster, you can, when you're looking at your Git status or looking at your Git patches, you can do -W and show all your Git changes without whitespace. Or you can fire your coworker from a cannon. If you go on vacation for 2 weeks and you come back and you have no idea what changed, as many of us have happened to us, I'm sure. Git what changed is a command that's built in, and you can do -- since 2 weeks ago or any sort of human readable date. A lot of stuff here. Got the dog tags and baby tags. We're going to switch. If you want to switch back and forth between two branches, you can get checkout dash. If you want to show the contents of an arbitrary commit, get show. If you want to add only part of a commit, get add dash p. And if you're on Windows, here's some commands that can help you out, make your coworkers' lives less miserable. Thanks, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Oh. Silly, great job.